So those dead bugs that live all over the front of your bike all summer, they can actually etch the surface, whatever surface it's on, chrome, black painted, paint, plastic, they will etch that surface. So a wet towel, preferably hot wet towel, and lay it over it. Let that soak for a while, and that'll release those bugs and make them easier to get off without marring the surface. Another way to help your bike to be protected from the bug guts that can etch away at the surface is to use a coating. So over the past several years, ceramic coatings have been all the rave, and they required a professional to put them on. But over time now, they've offered consumer versions of those that you can install yourself. And really in the last year, the new technology is called graphene. And so one of the problems with ceramic coatings is they tend to water spot. And especially in areas where you have a lot of minerals in your water like we do here. So the graphene forms a tighter bead on the surface and therefore less contact with the paint. So the water bead has a better chance to come off and not dry in place and create that water spot. So we're going to try out a graphene coating, something I've never used before, and we're going to install it on the bike. This is a perfect time to do it when the bike is new and there's not very much paint correction to do before putting the coating on. So we'll be using the Adams graphene coating, and some of the big claims here, it says up to 7 years of protection. It's a semi-permanent coating, right? So it's like putting a coating on there. It will come off over time, or you can use chemicals or polishes that will remove it. But we're going to put the coating on every painted surface and everywhere that's safe to do so to protect the bike. One of the things it notes here right in the description is the protection against bugs, and that's what I'm after. So yet another rainy day, so we'll wash the bike. And it's the first step in prepping it for a coating. I like to use these mitts with the microfiber fingers. They work well to get in the tight spaces, like in here inside the fairing. A great way to reach in with this. Very safe to touch all the surfaces. You can even wipe the screen. You can work on one side and then flip it over to have a clean side. These work really well. So when you're drying your bike, you want to use a towel dedicated for drying. Do not use a bath towel, a hotel towel. They're the worst. You're just going to mar that finish. These towels are designed to dry, and they can hold like twice their weight in water. So they absorb a lot. So one towel will do it. And I like the smaller version for a motorcycle. But I started taking some parts off because they'll be much easier to coat. And there's some areas, painted areas, you can't get to unless you remove parts. So we've got parts kind of all over the garage. These side panels here, we will coat those much easier with them off. This is the deflector that goes on the top of the fairing. So see my other video on how to remove this fairing, because you got to take the outer fairing off to get to the bolts underneath. But I wanted to take this off because this is a major painted area, right? So this sits on here like this. And I wanted to coat this painted area, because if you're familiar with the road glides and even the street glides with that vented area, the bugs love to get caught in there, and that's where they sit. So having these surfaces coated will make it much easier to get the bug guts off those painted spots. I noticed there's quite a bit of molding and shaping in the top that goes under that to really move that air around. You could tell Harley was using a lot of technology to figure out how to move air around a rider. So pretty neat design. So we got this off. I'll definitely remove the bags, and I will coat the bags separately, and I'll probably take these the side panels off as well. We'll take the seat off for sure. You do not want coating on your seat or wax on your seat, so that's got to come off. So a couple more parts to remove, and we're almost ready to coat. The more you prep, the better the end result will be, especially with paint, right? So the instructions on all these coatings say, emphasize the importance of prepping. So they talk about clay barring and polishing, and then getting the paint prep before you coat. So in this case, the bike is very brand new, and I will say the paint is immaculate. All the surfaces are really great. So what we're going to do first, instead of just compounding the bike, I don't think that's necessary. And clay barring the bike, I don't think is necessary. So clay barring is where you take the clay material and you run it across the paint, and it's to pick up any contamination, embedded contamination. Now that's something you would feel. So as you run your finger across the paint, you would feel that contamination. It would be like gritty. And that's where you want to use the clay to get that grit off. Or iron deposits can appear on paint, and claying can get that removed. But claying will mar the paint. So you have to then polish after you clay, and then you got to paint prep to get the polish oils off the bike. So it's a lot of work to prep. Since this surface is virgin, it's so new and immaculate, I don't intend to do that. One thing you can do, even if you have some of that, is just do the areas you need to do. Don't do the whole bike or the whole area. Just do the areas where you have that contamination. There is no reason to clay the whole vehicle or polish the whole vehicle unless you have a spot where you need to. So one thing that can help you is an inspection light. So these simulate sunlight. You can use a flashlight. You can just use a light and your eyes, and you can take it outside. I recommend that if you don't have one of these, take the bike on a sunny day out and give it a good inspection. So we'll turn this on, and there's two temperatures. You can do a cool temperature, a warm temperature, and you're just going to run the light around the surfaces. And you're looking for any smudges or swirls or any marks that you might want to polish or rub to get, clean extra, or rub or use the clay to remove before you coat the bike. Because you got to think of this coating is semi-permanent. So it's like putting a protective coating on there. So if you've got a swirl mark, you're putting a protective coating over the swirl mark. So it's going to be living with you, and it makes it really difficult to remove it after coating, because you got to take the coating off by polishing, and then you're going to have to fix the swirling, you have to recoat it. So this is your chance to go over every surface and be happy with it. I caution you, it's very easy to want to chase marks. You may see a little scratch, or especially in plastic, you may see some scratching or swirling, and you can chase it, right? So you'll get your orbital out and your polishing pads and go, and often you can make it a lot worse. So I really recommend, test, is it worth it? How much is it going to bother you? You've got to make that decision of how far you're going to chase something, but caution is key here. Is it worth it to go after it? So once you've inspected all the surfaces, if you have any that you want to get rid of, now is the time to try before you put the coating on. So when I talk about chasing and how far do you go, I found an example. So if we look here, we have a scratch in here. This is an actual scratch. So I've gone after that by hand, and it cured a little bit of it, but it's pretty far down there. And I think it's probably too far to go after. So this is where you decide. Do you break out the random orbital and go after it? Or does that going to mark up that whole area and just make it worse? These are the decisions, and you have to decide, is it worth chasing? Over time, especially those who paint correct a lot would say, don't do it. Don't go after it. What am I going to do? All right, in the name of science, just to see, we got an orange polishing pad, which is fairly soft, and a little Sonax Cut Max. It's a more liquidy, so I think it's a little safer. We'll give it a real low spin, 3,000 RPM, and really no pressure at all. Here we go. So not very much time, just a little bit. And we can see that we made really no difference, maybe just a hair. We certainly didn't do any damage, so we didn't make it worse. But that scratch there, that's in the paint. That's too far down there. So we are not going to dig any further, and we'll coat that as it is, and that will help. The coating will help a little bit, fill it in, but that is not going to come out. So important, don't feel defeated and stop. Don't keep going. And hey, it's a marker of your bike, so it's how you know yours is yours when you see it next to another one, right? That's just the way it is. So we have a scratch in the air deflector here. You can see it right there. So the key here is rubbing that by hand hasn't made much difference. So we're going to try the polisher. So orange pad, I'm using the Sonax Max Cut. It's a little more liquidy than the Meguiar's. Meguiar's also excellent. We're going to just rub that a little bit. Let's see what happens. And that scratch is almost completely gone. You can barely see it now. It's just really not visible unless you get direct light on it. It's barely there. So you certainly can polish plastics, softer pad, and a decent compound. You don't go very long, and you can polish these plastics. Completely gone. So once you're satisfied with all the surfaces and you're ready to put their coating on, there is one prep step you cannot skip, and that is to remove any grease from your fingers. If you did any polishing, you got to get that grease off. If you had any spray wax or anything you've been using on your surface, you need to get that off before you put the coating on. It just won't bond. So there's these paint preps. You can Google it. There's a lot of paint preps. I'll put some links in the description. So this product is very popular in the detailing world because it has many uses and it does them all very well. So this N914 rinseless wash can be diluted, and they give you all the dilutions on the label for different uses. So it's a good multi-use product, and I find it works really well. I really like it in the wintertime to get the road salts and the mag chloride off the paint before you wash it. It works really well against that stuff. So that is more of the concentrate and less of the water to create it for cleaning. But for paint prep, we're gonna do just 1 part of this to 8 parts of water. So I have a bottle here, and I mixed up 2 ounces of the product and 16 ounces of water. And this is important. So you're gonna spray this on, you're gonna wipe it off with a good, clean, quality microfiber towel, and we're looking to get any protection or any oils or greases off that paint before we coat. So what surfaces can you coat and what surfaces should you avoid? A motorcycle is a little different than a car. So the front end, I think, is one of the key areas you definitely want to coat as much as you can. You want to definitely coat your headlight. The coating will not hurt the headlight at all. It won't impact its lighting capability. You definitely want to coat the headlight. All the bugs are landing there. The fork legs, also really good to coat, but don't coat the exposed portion of the tube. I would not do that. Leave that alone, but the painted surfaces, the chrome surfaces, you can definitely coat these. You can certainly coat the fender, of course, any painted surface. I would not coat the calipers. You can. A lot of auto guys will coat these, and you can do that if you like for brake dust. I don't intend to, but I will coat the lower half here, and certainly this guard, I will coat that. Do not touch the rotor. You can coat your tires. A lot of people will do that. I think it's much easier to take the tire off, and then you can coat all of the rim. Obviously, you do not put any coating on the rubber at all, but you can coat the wheels. So one thing to think about is debadging. So if you're not going to run the cool bicycle deflectors, now is the time to get those off. And a lot of people reach for a heat gun, and they start heating these suckers up to make them easier to get off. Now, it is true, heat will help here, but I caution you, those heat guns are very hot, very quick, and they can damage surfaces, especially painted surfaces. So I would rather go grab the hairdryer and avoid the heat gun. Now these, when I saw the original release, I was looking at these, and these looked like they were permanent. Looked like they made a molding for the reflector to go in. Fortunately, it's not. It all comes off, and I just started grabbing it and twisting it, and this guy is just going to come off. You want to be careful not to twist too much, because you don't want the plastic scraping the surfaces. Especially this surface would be really impossible to polish. It's got a groove in it, and so we're just pulling and grabbing. It's definitely stuck more at the bottom than the top, and we're just going to keep doing that slowly. And then I think, if anything, a hair dryer would be a good option. Now we're going to be left with some glue on the surface, and so I like to use the Goo-Gone WD-40. You don't want to rub too hard, let the chemical do the work. And we can see, look, there's it is. And look, there's hardly anything. So pretty easy. We'll just give this a quick clean, and this will be ready to coat. So we'll coat that whole painted surface, leave the exposed surface alone. Now, the engine. So coatings, some coatings can handle heat. So some are designed for heat. I would never coat a hot part of a motorcycle. I just wouldn't do it. I think the coating will fail. It'll look awful. It'll get hazy. That'd be my concern. So I would not coat any surface that gets hot, especially those pipes or your heads or anything like that. But like the air cleaner, you can certainly coat this, right? This is not going to get hot, and your leg rubs up on it, bugs get on it. So this is a good surface to coat. If you're going to remove the warning sticker, now's the time to do it. Remove that before you go. You can certainly coat your crash bars, but don't coat your pegs. I wouldn't coat any of this where your foot goes. I would not coat the cam cover. You may coat some of these covers, maybe, but I would just say no. There's too much heat risk there. You can certainly do the air deflectors, but avoid the hot surfaces. Otherwise, everything is pretty fair game for coating, and it'll certainly make it easier to clean over time. You're likely to be able to spray it and have to rub it less. If I had to give any advice over my years of paint correction and protecting paint, I've always found the best way to preserve, especially a paint that's in good shape, is don't freaking touch it. So don't rub on it, right? So avoid the desire to rub something, leave it alone, clean it with a lot of water, a lot of soap, but don't rub it. The less you rub surfaces, the longer they will stay shiny. That is just reality. So if you're traveling and you're going hotel to hotel, I see these guys come out with the towels from their hotel room that they took a shower with, and they're rubbing on it, and they got bugs, and they just want to get them off. I really avoid that. Don't touch the bike. Don't clean it. Just wait till you can do it properly. That is really the answer of keeping these things nice. So this is a good example of why we do the inspection and the paint prep. So there is like a sticky substance right here. And on the light, it shows dull. So it's about the size of a penny. And it's like a glue-ish substance, packing or something. So that's something you don't want to coat over. So take your time. This is your chance to really get it right before you put that coating on. I think we're ready to coat. So we've washed the bike. We prepped it with the paint prep. We examined it really closely. There's no imperfections we're going to go after. So a couple things about coating. The suede applicators are your friend, and the smaller the better for a bike. So I'll put a link in the description for these. But I don't like the microfiber blocks. They just absorb too much of the coating, and this stuff's expensive. So don't soak it all into a sponge. The suede material on these really prevents that, and it goes on really nice. Have plenty of clean towels. Don't go through all this effort and then use a towel with a little grit in it and just introduce new swirling. Don't do that. So you're going to go through a lot of these towels. Now I am using just the box club ones, right? You pick your club. Some of the detailers would tell you, that's not fine enough. I don't go for perfection, right? I'm not after that, but a clean and a bunch of them is better than super expensive in some cases, but you do you. All right, so the coating has graphene in it. It floats around in there. So it'll be at the bottom, you'll see it. So you want to give it a little shake to get that graphene to mix from the bottom. Don't go crazy shaking it up and getting it all frothy. We don't want to introduce a bunch of air into the material. So what we're going to do is we're going to open this up. We're going to place a line of the coating, and then we're going to rub it on in a crosshatch pattern. Okay, so a lot goes a long way. You do not need to soak this at all. And sometimes the instructions will tell you just a few drops. So we're gonna put some on here. And we're just gonna create a line. You can see that here. I'm just creating a line. That's all we need. And so we're gonna go in a crosshatch pattern. So no real pressure, just light. And so I'm just going to do this little section here, this little panel. And when they say crosshatch, they mean go one way and then go the other way. The reason for that is you're trying to make sure you get all the areas coated. And then when you move to the next area, they tell you to overlap, right? You want to overlap that coating so you don't end up with lines. So we're going this way on the next panel and then across. Like that. So how much can you do before you need to stop? Well, I would do small areas. And we're going to watch for this to set up. And we're going to use the inspection light or a flashlight to see it set up. And we may see a little beading, or we'll see a little wavy pattern. Sometimes they haze. I don't think this one does. So we'll look for that. At that point, you know it's time to wipe it off. Every time you wipe it, start with a clean surface of your towel and flip it frequently and change your towels frequently. Couple other things. This stuff stains. If you get it on your clothes, it's going to stain you, and whatever towels you use, it's likely to stain them, and you're going to throw them away. Also, these are not reusable. That coating is going to set up and get hard, and you can't reuse that. So that will be throwaway. If you're going to take breaks, which I will be, this is going to take a while, make sure you put the cap back on. This stuff will start to set. So this paint makes it really hard to see the coating setting up. Silver is a good color for hiding dirt. So if I'm looking real carefully and just in the shadows here, you can see a little bit of a pattern. You also see a little bit of a color. They actually have an ultra V ingredient in this. So if you had a UV light, you could really see it. But it only takes a couple minutes for it to set, and then you wipe it off. So when you're wiping it, it'll be a little grabby at first, meaning the towel doesn't flow too smoothly. And you're just going to wipe it in, not too hard, light pressure. You don't want to wipe the coating off. You're just trying to level it out. So light pressure here. And as it sets up, your slickness will return. So don't over wipe it. You don't want to rub it off again. You're just trying to level it out. And then you're looking for any marks. You know, did you forget a spot? And did you miss a wipe? And if you did, just correct that. But you want to fix it now before it sets up. So 24 hours to completely cure. They ask you not to get it wet or wash it, so I'll let it sit 24 hours and then we'll be good to go. So gonna work through the whole bike, gonna take a while, but we'll get her done. So quick update, I've got through most of the front of the bike. The paint makes it really hard to see the coating flash. So I'm finding, I tested on a black spot and you can see it's flashing really quickly. So it's anywhere from a minute to 5 minutes. You're looking for a rainbow pattern and it should be grabby to take off. So I think I wasn't waiting long enough when I first started. So I'm waiting a little bit longer, but it's not taking too long. It figures it's dry here in Colorado, but today's fairly humid. So this is what it looks like. We'll see if you can see it, but there's some rainbowing, some marks there. And that indicates that it's about ready to wipe off. So use a lot of towels. And one other thing, gloves. It's a good idea to wear gloves. Otherwise your hands are going to get all sticky and who knows how good that chemical is for you. So gloves are a good idea. Well, 4.5 hours later, I believe we're done. So the bike is coated, at least the painted surfaces. I did things like the heat deflectors here, I did those. Did the air cleaner, of course, all the painted surfaces. I did not do the handlebars, but that might be a good thing to do, and probably the mirrors. So maybe I'm not done just yet. Forgot those. But all the inner fairing. I wanted to call out too, do not use coating on the screen. And I was real careful and I kind of taped some areas off. You do not want the coating on those digital screens at all. So careful there. I did do the crash bar and I did the radiator guard because that's a buggy spot, the headlight, all the front is done. Now one item I've skipped is this windshield. Because that windshield is frankly useless. And it is really what is drowning out the sound of the motor and the stereo. So they got rid of the buffeting, but man, they made it noisy right in your face. So there's just all this wind noise. So that is getting replaced. So the new one will be coated. So join me for a future video on how that goes. I'd say it took me about 4.5 hours total. I went through, I think, 5 towels, 2 of the applicator pads, and I almost ran down the battery on this. The color made it really hard to see. So you could not tell when the coating had flashed. So I did some plastic pieces and some black pieces here, and that gave me a good feel. It was really right about a minute. It actually, in a lot of cases, flashed right away. I was able to rub it off. I did experiment leaving it on longer. It does make it really hard to get off. The transfer fluid gets real sticky, so it's hard to get off. So it was right about a minute. I'm anxious to see the first time I wash it, how well this cleans off and how well this coating works. I've not used this Adams Graphene before. Pretty well rated by many of the YouTubers. Certainly easy to work with. But I'm excited to have the bike coated. This was the time to do it. Very few smudges on the bike or really no imperfections at all. I found one nub that's in a place you can't see, so I decided to leave it. I mean, outstanding work, Harley. Really, they have figured out how to paint a motorcycle at a super high quality with super few imperfections and beautiful metal flake. So getting real happy with the paint. Not a big silver guy, but it is a darker silver, starting to enjoy it. So happy to be done. Have to put the bike back together, but I'll probably wait till tomorrow. Let it cure 24 hours before touching. That's pretty important with these coatings. Read the instructions, but most are about 24 hours. And then they say it takes a full week to cure. So some folks let them sit for a week. I don't think I'll be doing that. So it's been a week and it's had a chance to cure. Let's see how well it works. So you can see quite a bit of beading, but the key is that the water is just coming right off the bike. It's not sticking to the bike. One test for a coating. So you take a cup filled full of water, and when you run that water out of that cup against the surface vertically, it leaves a dry surface. So a self-drying vehicle, almost. Amazing performance, but it's only been a week. Let's see what it looks like in a year. I will keep you updated on how well this coating holds up over time. A couple of notes about caring for it. So they do sell soaps for graphene coatings. Adams has a graphene shampoo. This has been really well rated. I have not used it before, but we'll find out. And then a detailer. So when you go to dry the vehicle, use a detail spray. There are lots of choices. I really do like actually this cheap turtle wax. You get this at Walmart. This Minute Wax. This has a nice mister, an aerosol mister built in. It works really well. So use a detailer when you're drying the vehicle. So while it's wet, spray it on and then wipe it off with a good drying towel. That'll keep your coating up to ship shape. So I hope you learned something, and if you did, you share that information with someone else. But until next time, in the friction zone.